Hello students, welcome to English Classroom. Hope you had a safe day. Today we are going to talk about listening skills for semester 1. Of all the 4 LSRW skills, listening skills is one of the most important skills. So every English teacher has to concentrate on this listening skills and develop these skills among students because this is one of the most employable skills that you need to hone. So to begin with, let me start with an anecdote. Right? Once the new students joined in a medical college and they have been waiting for their first class. Now, the professor has told them that their first class will be on anatomy and they are asked to assemble in a lab where a dead body was placed. So all the students were very curious because that was their first class and they were waiting for the professor. The professor comes to the lab and he tells them, now this is your first class, so you need to concentrate on what I say and what I do and do as I do. So the students were keenly looking at him and he said, first thing that you will have to do is take your pointed finger, push it into the nose of the body and then remove it from that and with your other finger suck it up. Now, all the students were so busy looking at the demonstration of how the doctor was doing, and when they saw him sucking the finger, they felt it was very weird. And after finishing the act, he asked the students to do the same. Though they were hesitant, they could not say no because the professor has himself demonstrated that. So each one very reluctantly did that act. Now, after finishing the act, then the professor said that what they did was not right because they are not fit to be in the class because they did not follow his orders, right? So now he said that for any student, first skill that they should have is good listening skills. Now, when he was saying, he said, put your pointed finger into the nose and suck your other finger. This the students had missed, and so they had misinterpreted the whole act. So, this anecdote tells us that listening is very, very important because if we do not listen properly, we may misinterpret the whole meaning of what is being said. Listening skills is not only important to students, but it is also important to everyone in their life. So today we will go through what is listening skills, why listening skills are important, what are the different types of listening skills, and what are the strategies that we need to know to develop our listening skills. Now, to support the statement, the listening skills are important. Let me quote Ernest Hemingway's quote where he says, when people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. This is very, very true. We are all very interested in telling, but we don't want to listen. But remember, only those people are successful in their life who have learned to listen. I would also like to quote Diogenes, who said, "We have 2 ears and one tongue, so that we would listen more and talk less." Now, this quote says that God has Himself created us in such a way that He says that listening is very, very important, and that is why we are given 2 ears and one tongue to speak. Now, if we look at the statistics of the percentage of the LSRW skills that we use, that we see that listening takes the first place with 45%, speaking takes second place with 30%, and reading 16% in the third position, and writing is in the fourth position with 9%. So these percentages also show that listening is very, very important. And research findings show that 1/4 of our waking time is spent in listening. Research show that at workplace, on an average, person spends 32.7% on their time listening, 25.8% of their time speaking, 22.6% of their time writing, right? So listening is very, very important. And but people don't realize this. Most people keep a mistaken notion that speaking has got an upper hand. But remember, students, as students, you too need to develop this listening skills, because don't you think that when we were born, we could only speak after listening? So listening is very, very important. Now, keeping all these facts, let us define what is listening. Listening is nothing but it is a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to a message from the speaker. We know that no communication process is complete without listening, isn't it? Only when we listen, we can communicate. So, listening is very, very important. In other words, listening is the deliberate attempt for receiving the sound symbols for the sake of understanding the meaning carried by them. Now, often we try to misunderstand the two words, that is listening and hearing. We always try to use them interchangeably, but the fact is that these two words are two different words, right? I'll give you a very beautiful example. Now, while I am doing this class on the video, I can hear the sound of the fan. I can hear the sound of the vehicles that is passing by my house. Now, this I'm not doing it deliberately, but they happen to come and fall into my ears. Now, while you are looking at this video, what you're doing is that you are listening. It is a voluntary act that you are doing, right? So this is the difference between listening and hearing. So hearing it solely depends on the ears, and it is merely a vibration sounds of the eardrum followed by electrochemical response. On the other hand, listening requires voluntary attention and then making sense of what is being said. Now, why do we have to learn listening skills? What is the objective in learning listening skills? We have to learn listening skills to increase one's understanding, to advise or counsel someone. First, we have to listen. To relieve our boredom, we listen to music, right? Other than that, we know that communication is not complete without effective listening. Then, an attentive listener stimulates better speaking by the speaker. Now, to make this understand better, don't you think when somebody is telling a story, if you show interest, the one who is telling the story will try to tell it more interestingly. That means you're stimulating better speaking by the speaker. A good listener learns more than an indifferent listener. A good listener can restructure vague speaking in a way that produces clearer meaning. A good listener learns to detect prejudice, assumptions, and attitude. Now, the next question is, why is listening an important skill to develop in language learners? Especially in English classes, it is important. Now, let me give you an example that I have been experiencing for so many years. I find that when students come from vernacular medium, or for that matter, even students from English medium, when they come, my students come from villages, and my college is situated in city, and my two stations where I live was situated where more Hindi speaking people reside. Now, these students who come here come with only one language, that is, they only know the Telugu language, but they easily pick up Hindi language and they're able to speak. But when it comes to English, they are not able to do the same. Now, what is the reason? The reason is that whether they want or not, they are hearing to the Hindi words spoken by the people around them, and a little effort made by them, listening carefully to that language, they are able to imitate that and speak and learn that language. But in the case of English, because they do not have any audience who speak English language, they find it very difficult. So you know that how important it is. If you want to learn language, listening is very, very important. Now, what is the importance of listening for a language learner? For a language learner, listening is important because language learners need to obtain information, they need to understand. For enjoyment, they need to learn this, listen, and to learn a language, they have to listen. To communicate, they have to listen. Other than that, listening improves relationships, listening improves our knowledge, listening improves our understanding. It helps us to prevent problems escalating. It can lead to better results, right? It saves our time and energy. Not only that, for English learners, listening can help you expand your vocabulary. It can help you to get accurate pronunciation. It can help you to frame correct sentence pattern when you listen. It can help you in situational communications, right? For example, if you go to a hospital, when you listen to the help desk people asking, talking, you will know what kind of language you have to use there. When you go to the bank, when you see the employee, bank employee talking to you, you will know how to interact in a bank, at a railway station. So you will know how to interact at situational places by listening. So that is why listening is very, very important. Now, what is the process of listening? Now, for listening, first you receive, then you understand, you remember, you evaluate, and you respond. This is the process that undertakes when you're listening. Let us look at this in detail. Now, receiving. Now, when somebody speaks to you or when you're listening, you you response caused by sound waves stimulating the sensory receptors of the ear. It is a physical response. You listen to it and afterwards you understand it. It is a stage where you learn with the tone in which, or by looking at the non-verbal communication, you will understand, and the sounds, putting all this together, you will try to understand what you are listening. And then remembering. It means that an individual has not only received and interpreted a message, but has also added to it the mind's storage bank. Oh, if he is telling in this tone, that means it's in a happy way he is saying, right? He is not sarcastic. So this is how you try to work out. And then evaluate. Then afterwards you evaluate. It consists of judging the message in some way. At times you may try to evaluate the speaker's underlying intentions. They might say something plainly, but maybe the intentions could be anything. So you evaluate. After doing all this, the last stage is responding. This stage requires that the receivers complete the process through verbal and non-verbal feedback. Now we tend to have different types of listening in our life, and they are appreciative listening, emphatic listening, comprehensive or active listening, and critical analytical listening. What is appreciative listening? Appreciative listening is listening for entertainment or mental pleasure. Just like we listen to music, storytelling, or you listen to jokes, right? This is for entertainment that we listen. The next one is emphatic listening. This is supposing your friend is sad and he wants to tell you why he is sad. So you give a support to your friend. And sometimes the student is struggling with some problem. So the teacher is giving an emphatic listening, trying to understand the problem of the student. The next is critical or analytical listening. Now this, I can give you an example. Like, for example, you're going to buy some car. So you're giving a critical analytical listening to whatever he says. Okay, can we take this car? Can we buy this? Or a political leader, when he gives his speech, after listening to the speech, you might wonder, okay, can I give a vote to him, right? Or sometimes if somebody is sick and the doctor comes out and tells you need to go for an operation, then you're analyzing, do you think we need to go? Is the doctor right or wrong, right? So this is another way of listening that we do. We focus on evaluating whether a message is logical and reasonable, right? Then the last one, which is very, very important, is active listening, right? Now, this is where we listen for getting message or knowledge, information, or understanding a concept. Generally, active listening happens in classrooms, in seminars, right? This is where we do. So one has, as students, one has to develop this active listening. Now, I'll give you a beautiful anecdote for the importance of active listening. One day in a class, an English teacher comes and she decides to test the active listening of the students. So she tells a story to them. She says, she asks a question to them, not a story. She says, a farmer has 5 haystacks in one field and 4 haystacks in another field. How many haystacks would he have if he combined them all in one field? Now, everyone started thinking about the question, and finally, each of them concluded that the answer to the question was none. Then, finally, the ma'am said that the answer is one. Because if he combines his all haystacks, they will all become one big haystack, right? So this haystack, what it says is that this anecdote tells us that one should have active listening. One should listen very carefully when something is being said. Only then they can understand. So we need to understand it completely. So that is why active listening is very, very important, right? So active listening is done to understand the message of a speaker. And when we attend a classroom lecture or listen to directions to find somebody's house, we are doing active listening, right? We are focusing on accurately understanding the meaning of the speaker's word, while simultaneously we are also interpreting their nonverbal cues, facial expressions, gestures, postures, and vocal quality. So that is the reason why active learning, listening is very, very important. So I would like to stress a little more on active learning. Now, what is the steps that we go through when we are doing this active learning? First is we hear, then we filter what is important, what is not important, then we understand, then we remember, connect it with our previous knowledge, and then we respond, right? So listening carefully by using all available senses, then paraphrasing it, what is heard both mentally and verbally, and checking your understanding to ensure accuracy, and then providing feedback. Now, during a question answer sessions, speakers use comprehensive listening skills to accurately interpret the audience questions, right? Now, apart from these 4 types of listening, there are other listenings also that we do. That is intensive listening. That is, supposing an English teacher is talking, you're looking at the words, the intonation, right? Or sometimes responsive listening, right? Greeting. Somebody says good morning, you give back good morning. Somebody asks a question, you answer back the question. Sometimes we do selective listening. Say when you're watching TV, you don't listen to everything. Only what you want, you will listen, right? Extensive listening, that is listening just for the gist, for the main idea, not listening everything in detail. So these are the different types of listening. Now, generally, students find it difficult to listen, especially in language class. It is all the more difficult for them to listen. Now, why do they find it difficult? Now, you find it difficulty because you're trying to understand every word if it is English language, right? Or if you're listening to something which you don't know, also you're trying to understand every word. Then you just don't know what are the important words, right? You have a problem with the accent. That is why you might find speaking English is difficult. Or sometimes students get tired very soon and they get distracted from listening. Then sometimes students cannot cope without images, just listening, they cannot cope up, right? And students sometimes have hearing problems. So, to overcome this, we need to know what are the strategies that are there to develop listening skills. Now, listening strategies are nothing but techniques or activities that contribute directly to the comprehension and recall of listening input, right? And they can be classified by how the listener processes the input. There are three strategies: top down, bottom up, and metacognitive. What is top down strategy? Now, for example, I would like to teach about, say, I want to teach about pollution. I will bring a map and keep over there with all the pictures. Now, by looking at the picture, the student can predict the content of listening activity beforehand. So, such pictures and keywords will help them understand while listening. Now, so what are the activities that you should do to develop this? That is, putting series of pictures, listening to conversations, reading information, and inferring the relationship. Now, where do we use these top down strategies? Generally, we use these top down strategies when we watch drama, movie, or when we listen to news, or when we are listening to real life stories, right? Now, the so in this, we are just trying to understand the gist, right? We are not looking into every bit of it. So this is top down strategy. The next is bottom up strategy. Now, in this bottom up strategy, what you do is that it is about details and segments. It concentrates on forms and structure. So this activity is more related in academic study. So as students, you'll all will follow this bottom up listening strategies. English learning students use this activity to enhance their listening ability, right? So this is your bottom up strategy. Now, where do we use our bottom up strategy? Not only in the classrooms, but we also use, for example, when we are concentrating on details like weather forecasts, phone numbers, or anything that we want to listen in detail, or say English forms and pronunciations. So in such places, we try to use this bottom up strategy. Now, let me make it very clear to you with this beautiful example. What is the difference between top down and bottom up? Say, for example, over lunch, one of your friend who has been on a holiday is trying to tell you about an accident that he has witnessed when he was on his holiday. Now, you listen with interest, and sometimes you just give some, oh my God, did it happen like that? What happened to that person? So you are showing keen interest. And after that, when you go home that evening, one of your friend calls you and said, today I'm having a party at my place. Will you come? And then you say, I don't know your house, where it is. Then can you tell me the address? And then he's giving you directions on the phone. And then you're listening for the directions. Now, in these two cases, how do you listen? Are there any difference? Is there any difference? Yes, definitely there is difference. Now, when you are listening to the holiday anecdote, you are not listening to everything in detail. That is called top-down strategy, right? You're just wanting to know the gist. Whereas when you are listening to the directions for the house to reach to the party house, you are listening to every detail, right? Everything, minute details you are listening, and that is called as bottom-up strategy. The next one is metacognitive listening strategies. Now, what is metacognitive listening strategies? It is where, actions that the learners deliberately take to enhance comprehension and oversee and regulate the listening process. They include planning, monitoring, evaluation, and problem solving. So these are the three strategies that we use to enhance our listening skills, right? Now, next is, what are the rules for a good listener? How can we be a good listener? When you want to be a good listener, stop talking, stop thinking, remove distractions. Don't let your mind wander. Do not prejudge what somebody is going to tell. Listen, empathize with the speaker, and take notes, right? What are the negative listening habits that you need to avoid? The faker. Most of the students do that. They are trying to uh, pose as if they are listening, but their mind is elsewhere. The interrupter, one who keep on interrupting when somebody is saying something and not listening properly. Then the intellectual or logical listener who is giving his own judgments. This you should not do. If you're a good listener, you should give time for the person to speak and listen completely. The happy hooker, that is, who's time and again trying to focus the limelight and saying that I know better than you, right? And then the another person who's trying to look at mistakes, trying to take out your mistakes, what mistakes you're doing, that is also bad. And one more person is that advising. So don't do that. Don't pretend that you're listening. Don't interrupt. Don't judge. Don't steal the limelight. Don't advise them, right? Don't tell them that what they are doing is wrong. Because poor listeners, you should know that there are certain things that you will be known as a poor listener. When are you a poor listener? When you try to show that you know the answer, not giving time to listen to everything. Or supposing if the speaker is finding it difficult to talk, you're trying to be very helpful by supporting him. Don't do that. You will be bringing down his morale, right? And trying to influence the speaker and impress the speaker, making assumptions, being in a hurry, or looking for a point to argue with them. So these are all shows that you are a poor listener. You must always be a good listener. Now the next question is, how should I become a good listener, right? So here are 7 ways to improve your listening. First is increase your listening span. Try to resist the temptation to interrupt. Generally, we have a span of 8 minutes, they say. After 8 minutes, we start moving around. So, wandering. So, we should increase our listening span. Then make sure second point is that make sure the speaker has had a complete chance to make his or her point before you speak. Don't speak until the speaker has completed this sentence. Third is, if you don't get the whole message, ask the speaker to repeat what they said. Then next is give your full attention by nodding, right, or clarifying certain things in between. That will boost up the speaker when they are speaking. If you at all have to ask questions, use open-ended questions to encourage elaboration, right? And next is that listen for ideas. Listen for ideas as well as facts. A good listener makes an effort to understand what the facts add up to. Next, seventh one and the last one is don't monopolize. Resist the urge to dominate a situation or to feel that you know everything about a situation, right? Be open to new ideas and allow the speaker to have his or her way. So this is how you're going to use these 7. If you follow these 7 steps, you are going to improve your listening skills. So what are those 7 steps? Increase your listening span. Make sure the speaker has completed his chance of speaking. Then if you don't get the message, ask for more information, right? And give your full attention. If you want to ask questions, use open-ended elaboration, right? And restate the message. When you are sure that the speaker has finished, restate the points and give assurance that the message has been received. Next is listen for ideas, and then last is don't monopolize, right? Now, what are the benefits of effective speaking? Effective speaking enhances your productivity, it improves relationships, right? It avoids conflict, it improves understanding, it improves your negotiation skills, Only when you listen, you can negotiate, right? It helps you stand out. People will appreciate if you give a ear to listen to them. So, these are some of the benefits that you have. And then it improves your relationship, it improves your knowledge. You will have more knowledge, right? And then it prevents problems. If you listen properly, it is going to prevent a lot of problems. It will save your time and energy, and it will lead to better results. Then how can good, effective listening help you at your workplace? Now, as I told you earlier, an employer would always appreciate someone who is a good listener, right? So, at workplace, effective listening skills will lead to effective communication. So, you need to be a good listener. Only then you can be an effective communicator. And as I said, the anecdote that I said, it will reduce your misunderstanding, it will reduce misinterpreting certain things, right? Then it will also develop strong interpersonal relationships at your workplace. When you listen to the instructions properly and do your work rate will be fast. And not only that, a good listener will help you your will help you to have a better personal growth, right? So that is the advantage, or those are the benefits of effective listening. Now, what are the barriers to listening? Despite all this, we are all very poor in listening, right? So, there are certain barriers that hinder us from listening. So, for listening to be effective, we must recognize and remove these barriers, right? We must recognize and remove these barriers. They are physical barrier, psychological barrier, and physiological barrier. Now, what is a physical barrier? And a physical barrier is nothing but environmental barriers. If room is too hot or too cold, you cannot concentrate. If your chair is uncomfortable, you cannot concentrate on listening. If the lighting is too bright, too dim, you cannot concentrate. Bad ventilation, you cannot concentrate. Noise, smell, and sights, all this can hamper your listening, right? Next is personal barriers. Supposing you're preoccupied with your own problems, then also it will hamper your listening. Thinking about own responses. You want to answer, you are in a haste to answer without hearing to the speaker. That also can hamper your listening. Looking for every opportunity to interrupt, right? And then pseudo listening. These are some of the reasons which can hamper your listening. Then linguistic barriers, jargon, or high language. For example, if you listen to Shashi Tharoor, I think we will lose our interest within 2 minutes, because the words that he will use, we will not understand, because the high language that he is using. This can lose our interest, right? Then monotonous voice. For example, if I take my whole class, today I'm going to teach you on listening skills, and my whole class I will go with the same voice. How long will you listen? Your interest will be gone. Inappropriate tone. Too loud, too slow, too low, too fast, rate of delivery, all this can lead to disinterest in listening. Or it can be your physiological barriers, health issues. If you're suffering from something, then you may not be able to listen, right? Tiredness. If you're very tired, you will not be able to listen. Discomfort. If you are not in a proper position, that also can lead to, or physically, if you are having discomfort, your listening capacity will go down. Poor eyesight also can lead to bad listening. So Here are some tips that I would like to give you all to improve your listening skills. Now, listening does not mean just listening through your ears, but listening also involves good body language and non-verbal communication, and can give you many messages. So, good body language can put someone at ease before you say anything. Smiling and nodding, an open, friendly, confident posture, good eye contact should be there. But good eye contact does not mean that you have to stare, right? So that is one thing that you can do. Then giving people time to say what they want to. Avoid interrupting or finishing their sentences for them. Don't finish them. Give them time. Let them take their own time to finish their sentence. Supposing if you are trying to speak something in English and I keep helping you, interrupting you, what will happen? You will lose confidence. So don't do that. So it sends the message that you are more important. You know what they're going to say and that you are in a rush, right? So don't do that, right? So then, to summarize, good listening skills include paying attention, right? Non-verbal, verbal, and allowing people to finish, being aware of their body language, checking, understanding, paraphrasing, summarizing, reflecting back the words, right? Allowing for silence, not rushing in or interrupting, allowing reflection to take place, right? Encourage exploration. Tell me more about that. Make it clear that you want to support the person in reflecting and understanding. So, these are what a good listener should do. Face the speaker, maintain eye contact, be attentive, but be relaxed, right? Keep an open mind. Don't come with prejudiced notions, right? Listen to the words and try to picture what they're saying, right? Don't give solutions. Wait for them. Take their opinion, what they are trying to say, right? Acknowledge their opinion also. Don't always try to give your opinion, and wait for the speaker to pause and ask for clarification, right? And then ask questions only to ensure that you are understanding them, not to demoralize them and focus that you are better than them, right? And try to feel what the speaker is feeling. Try to empathize with the speaker. Give the speaker regular feedback. When you give regular feedback, then only it is the speaker will be happy. And pay attention to their non-verbal communication, right? So I would like to end, I think I've made very clear, I would like to end with another anecdote where a teacher, a principal asks a question that if a black man marries a white girl and they have a black baby, what would be the color of the baby's teeth? Almost everyone in the auditorium shouted, white, followed by some laughter. No doubt, the question was very funny, but the principal tells babies don't have teeth when they are born. And what did he say? He said, now listen to the guest with your brains open, not just your ears. Listening does not mean only through your ears, but also you have to keep your brains open, right? So, this tells us that listening is this anecdote with which I'm going to close today's session tells us that listening is not that only you give an attentive ear, but you also have to keep your brains sharp and open and listen and understand. And remember, all great people, all the great people in this world were able to I mean, they were able to do, they were successful in their life because they are good listeners. Be it great scholars, be it great politicians or actors, whoever it is, everyone in any field have achieved their success because they have honed this skill of listening. So, students, if you want to progress in your life, first and the foremost skill that you have to hone is not speaking skills. You have to hone your listening skills. If you hone your listening skills, automatically you will be able to speak. You can be a good communicator, provided you are a good listener. So, of all the skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing, listening skills is very, very important in our life. So, from today onwards, when you go to your class, as I said earlier, try to read and go the lesson. When you read and go, what will happen? Your listening gets enhanced, right? Because you're listening to something that you have already known, right? So please put this into practice. Read the lesson, what the teacher is going to teach you before you go to listen, and focus on all the points that I have given you, and try to develop your listening skills. I think I have been very clear. And if you, after listening to the video, if you still have any doubts, you can contact me on the groups, ask questions on the groups, and I will give you answers to your group. So thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you for giving this opportunity. Stay safe, stay home, protect yourself from COVID-19, wear your masks, and maintain your distance. Thank you.